I was asked not to come to my own mother's birthday because apparently I didn't look right standing next to my sister's new boyfriend. The irony? That guy worked for me. He knew it too. Stared me straight in the eye and said, "If you're still thinking about coming back, then don't bother calling me your dad." 3 weeks later, on the day of my mom's birthday, their house lost power, water, and internet. My name's Ethan, I'm 31, and I live in a quiet town about 45 minutes outside of Portland. Mornings are always the same for me. Coffee in hand, local forecast on in the background, and a short drive to the office. I co-founded a small firm that builds clean energy solutions. It's not flashy, but it matters to me. Most people in my life, including my relatives, never really understood what I do. Some still assume I'm a technician, turning wrenches and fixing machines. I don't take offense. I never felt the need to set the record straight. When someone brings up my family, my parents, or my sister Harper, I usually just give a soft smile and say, "We haven't spoken in a while." That's the end of it. I'm not keeping secrets. I just don't see a reason to revisit the past anymore. It's been over 2 years since I last reached out. No calls, no messages, no birthdays or holidays, nothing at all. It's like whatever thread once tied us together quietly snapped, and no one moved to fix it. I used to believe that family came above all else. But something shifted 2 years ago, on my mother's birthday. Back then, about 3 weeks before the celebration, I had just scheduled time off and arranged a quick trip. The plan was straightforward. Head home a few days early, help set things up like I did every year. Nothing unusual, I just needed to give them a heads up. I called my mom's number, and my dad picked up after only 2 rings. "I'll be arriving a couple days before the birthday," I told him casually. "Let me know if there's anything you want me to bring or do." He gave a half-hearted answer at first, then paused. When he spoke again, something in his tone had changed. It was slower, heavier, like he was trying to sidestep something. "Ethan," he said, "if you can maybe sit this one out this year." At first, I figured he was just worried about me taking time off work. "It's all good, Dad," I said, still holding a warm mug of coffee. "I've already planned for it. It's really no big deal." There was a longer pause this time. When he spoke again, his voice had lost any warmth. It was steadier but distant. "Harper's bringing her boyfriend over this year. He's in management, carries himself well, speaks clearly. He's someone respectable. And your job, it's just not easy to explain to people. So maybe it's better if you stay away." I could feel heat crawl up the back of my neck and flush across my face. My pulse sped up, and I instinctively pulled the mug closer to my chest. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. "Are you seriously telling me that right now?" He didn't argue, didn't hesitate or backtrack. His response came sharp and blunt. "You showing up would only make us all look bad. If you're still thinking of coming, then stop calling me your father." Then the line went dead. I slowly set my phone down. My hand was damp, trembling slightly. The room around me felt still and hollow. No sound from the television, no noise outside, just quiet. I stood motionless, staring into nothing like the moment had knocked me off course. His voice kept replaying in my head, each word exact and cold. "You showing up would only make us all look bad. If you're still thinking of coming, then stop calling me your father." For a split second, I questioned whether I had misheard, but I hadn't. Every syllable had been clear, steady, and deliberate. No mistake, no hesitation, and absolutely no space left for misunderstanding. My jaw tightened. My throat felt as if it had locked up, like something inside me had lodged in place and wouldn't move. A wave of memories came rushing in. For over 2 years, I had quietly covered all their household bills, power, water, internet, without ever bringing it up. Not once did anyone acknowledge it. And now they were calling me an embarrassment to the family. I picked up my phone again, my hand still slightly unsteady even though my thoughts had started to settle. I opened my banking app and scrolled down to check the transaction history. I wasn't looking for justification. I just wanted the numbers, the totals I had spent supporting them behind the scenes. Each month, without exception, payments had gone through on time. Electricity, water, internet, all set to auto-pay. For 24 straight months, close to $400 left my account like clockwork. I scrolled all the way down. The total stood out clearly: $9,842.17. I kept staring at the number, not because it shocked me, but because something inside me finally went still. Not pain, not even anger, just space. Empty, unoccupied space. Almost $10,000. And now, I'm the one they see as a disgrace. Looking at that long list of transactions, one question rose in my mind. One no one in my family had thought to ask in 3 decades. Has Harper ever done even half as much for our parents as I have? It wasn't about envy. I wasn't craving praise or looking for recognition. It was a plain, quiet reflection. If I'm being labeled the shame of the family, then who exactly are they comparing me to? I had spent nearly $10,000 covering their basic needs, discreetly, consistently, without expecting anything in return, and without ever bringing it up. What about her? Had she ever needed to put something aside for their sake? Had she ever called asking if they were short on anything? Or did she just show up, smiling in a polished outfit, with a charming boyfriend on her arm, and leave behind a good impression? I wasn't trying to tally up who had done more. I was just realizing, for the first time, that fairness never seemed to matter in our family. I'd gotten used to being in the background. Even in childhood photos, I was often tucked behind someone or caught near the edge of the frame, rarely looking straight at the camera. No one ever told me to move aside, but I always did. Harper was always front and center, whether it was birthdays, school milestones, or even her breakups. She was the main focus. There was always a reason to gather around her, comfort her, celebrate her. I honestly can't remember the last time anyone asked me how I was doing. Harper's a couple of years older than me, but the gap between us was never really about age. She was the one with promise, the forward-looking child our parents would talk about when guests came by. And me? If I was mentioned at all, it was usually something brief like, "Ethan? Yeah, he's doing fine. I think he works with tech or something." I used to believe that if I just kept my head down, stayed out of trouble, and did what needed to be done, they'd eventually notice. But they didn't. What I've come to learn is, when you're used to being unseen, your absence goes unnoticed too. It was nearly 2 years ago that I started paying their household bills: power, water, internet. It all began with a call from my mom. That day she sighed about rising prices, how their bills had gone up again, and how their retirement checks weren't stretching like they used to. Then, in a quieter tone, almost unsure, she said, "If there's any way you could help out a little, it would really mean a lot." I agreed, thinking it was just temporary, maybe a few months until they got things sorted. But month after month, nothing changed. The same bills kept coming, and no one talked about stopping or finding another way. There was no end date, no plan. Every once in a while I'd ask, "Is Harper pitching in at all?" Mom would always brush it off, never giving me a straight answer. Sometimes she'd say, "Just help us out this month. Your sister will contribute next time." Other times it was, "Harper's already handling your dad's medical stuff. That's not easy either." I heard those same lines so often I could have repeated them word for word without thinking. And every time, I just gave a small nod and let it pass, even though I knew none of it was true. So I kept sending the money, almost $400 each month, quietly, consistently, without making a fuss. It wasn't because I didn't care. I did. I simply believed it was the right thing to do. I had this idea that if I just stayed steady, acted responsibly, and kept my head down, maybe one day they'd finally see me. But now, after everything, all they see is someone they're ashamed of. Eventually, the room fell completely still around me, and I found myself frozen on the couch, phone still in hand. I didn't feel anger anymore, not sadness either. There was only one feeling I could name. That's enough. I reopened my banking app, scrolled down to the section where I'd set up the recurring transfers, the ones that had quietly covered my parents' utilities every month for nearly 2 years. One by one, I opened each setting, electric, water, internet, and turned them off. No hesitation, no second guessing. I didn't do it out of spite. I wasn't trying to get even. I did it to hold on to the one thing I still had left, my sense of dignity, the one piece of myself they hadn't yet managed to take. About a week later, I got a message from my mom. Her voice in text felt exactly the same, soft, like nothing unusual had ever taken place. And there was no mention of the last call, no sign of regret, just a calm request. The internet bill came in. Can you cover it? I looked at the message, let my eyes rest on the screen for a while, then set the phone down without replying. Not to make a point, but because, even after everything, the first thing they thought to say was a favor. Can you pay the internet bill? That was it. No, how are you? Not even a simple, can we talk? So I said nothing, and to me, that silence carried all the weight I needed it to. 2 weeks passed before I heard from my father. He called, let it ring a few times, then hung up. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, his voicemail came through. His tone was clipped and irritated, just like always. The utility company reached out. This month's bill hasn't been paid. What's going on? No concern, no acknowledgement of what he'd said the last time we spoke. No mention of that day when I'd called to let them know I'd be home for Mom's birthday. I listened to the message, then quietly turned off the screen and laid the phone face down on the table. And just like that, I chose to stay silent. That silence lasted all the way to my mother's birthday. Her birthday fell almost 3 weeks after my father told me not to come. The celebration went on just as it always did. Her favorite roast chicken, cake from the bakery she liked, and a small circle of family seated around the table. Everyone was there, everyone but me. That afternoon, right at 4 p.m., I was sitting on my couch, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. My phone lit up. It was my mom. I stared at her name on the screen for a moment, then set the phone back down without a second thought. I didn't pick up. A few minutes later, my dad called, then Harper. 3 missed calls, all in under 10 minutes. I let each one ring through. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't expecting anything. I just stayed still, leaning softly against the back of the chair, eyes fixed on the blurred window pane in front of me. The sky outside was a dull, overcast gray, not raining, but the kind of quiet chill that slips under your door and reminds you that winter's just around the corner. Then, the messages began rolling in, about 10 minutes later. The first was from my mother. Ethan, the electricity's out, the whole house is dark. Please take care of the bill. I picked up the phone and read the message without reacting. There was no frustration, no shock, just a slow, hollow stillness settling into my chest. The kind that comes when you've spent years holding things together for everyone and suddenly realize you're the only one who ever did. Then came another message, this time from my father. No water. We can't cook. Take care of it. Right after that, Harper chimed in. Internet's out. People are showing up. Can you fix it now, please? I glanced at the clock. It was 5:12 p.m. I remembered the date exactly. 3 weeks earlier, I had canceled every automatic payment, just moments after my father told me not to call him Dad if I still planned on coming home. And now, in the middle of a birthday gathering I'd been told not to attend, everything began to fail. Electricity, water, internet, each one disappearing just when they needed it most. I didn't respond. I didn't pick up the phone or send an explanation. I just stayed where I was, slowly turning the cold coffee cup in my hands, still staring through the window as if trying to see something far beyond the glass. That's when it really settled in. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one else left to carry the load. By 6 p.m., the buzzing started again. This time it didn't stop. But it wasn't my parents or Harper anymore. Now it was the extended family, the kind that only shows up on holidays but somehow always feels qualified to judge. The messages rolled in like a tide. Some accused me of being selfish. One wrote, "You humiliated your mother in front of everyone." Another, more subtle but just as pointed, said, "Your sister was right." People like you have no place showing up during a celebration." I read through every message, not because I needed to, but because I was used to being misunderstood. I didn't reply, not because silence meant I agreed, but because I was done trying to explain myself to people who always sided with the loudest voices instead of the truth. I was just about to set the phone down when the screen lit up again, a call. It was Aunt Marlene, the only one left in the family who still believed in me. She was video calling through an old app, one that only she and I ever bothered to use anymore. We kept using it because, in our own way, we were the only two who still valued being face-to-face when it mattered. I hesitated, then answered on the second ring. Her face appeared faintly shadowed by the golden glow of the kitchen light behind her. I knew that room by heart, every creaky drawer and every stain on the wall. But tonight, it felt unfamiliar. I could hear the sounds of silverware clinking, muffled laughs, bits of small talk echoing behind her. She looked straight at me, eyes soft but concerned. "You're really not going to pay it, Eli?" Her voice was gentle, more curious than critical, like she was trying to understand. I held her gaze, and when I finally spoke, my voice came slow and weighted, like I was pulling up something I'd kept buried for too long. "You know, Auntie, it was Dad who told me not to come." I swallowed hard. He said if I showed up anyway, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. She fell quiet. Her eyes shifted slightly, like she was suddenly more aware of what was happening behind her. Then everything on the call erupted into chaos. In the background, I heard my mother's voice pierce through the noise. "Tell him he's a disgrace, on today of all days. How could he do this to me?" Then my father, louder and sharper, "This isn't even a big deal, it's just a couple bills. What kind of man makes a scene over money?" Another voice, probably my uncle, added, "That poor girl, Harper. Imagine dealing with a brother like that." I could hear footsteps moving closer to the phone. A moment later, Harper stepped into the frame behind Aunt Marlene, arms crossed, lips curled with irritation. "He actually picked up," she muttered, like even that was somehow a problem. "Mom's been crying all day. Does he even care? Honestly, it's like he has no shame." I didn't respond. I just watched quietly, as if saying nothing was the only way left to protect myself. I was just about to end the call when another face appeared on the side of the screen. A younger guy, clean-cut, dressed in a dark suit with neatly styled hair. He looked at me with a puzzled expression, then gave a small, uncertain smile. "Hey, boss?" His voice was slightly rough, like he wasn't sure if what he was saying even made sense in this moment. I froze. My eyes stayed locked on the screen as I instinctively pulled the phone a little closer. I hadn't expected this. Definitely not now. Not on the very night they all decided I was too much of a disgrace to be there. I studied his face for a few seconds and then it clicked. The look, the tone. Of course. He was one of our recent hires, transferred from our South Coast division. We'd exchanged a handful of emails and he'd sent me a couple of quarterly updates. But I hadn't known. I had no idea this was Harper's boyfriend, the man everyone had rallied around to impress. Behind Aunt Marlene, the room seemed to freeze. She glanced over her shoulder, and suddenly the kitchen filled with hurried shuffling and a low buzz of confused whispers. Someone murmured, "Wait, what did he just call Eli?" Another voice followed up, uncertain but curious. "Boss? Wait. Eli is Harper's boyfriend's boss?" The murmurs grew, layering over each other, voices laced with disbelief. And me, I just kept looking at the screen. No reaction, no interruption. I just waited. Then the young man stood a little straighter, turned his attention away from the screen, and addressed the others clearly, without hesitation. "I work at Pacific TerraTech. Mr. Eli is one of the company's co-founders." His words cut clean through the background noise. No clinking, no chatter, just a heavy quiet that filled the room like fog. It wasn't awkward, just stunned. Still, I said nothing. I simply pressed my lips together and gave a small nod. He looked back at me, eyes slightly wider now, unsure. And I said calm and steady like I'd been saving the line just for this. Hope your big introduction goes smoothly. Then I ended the call. That night I slept deeply. No restless turning, no waking up with old doubts circling in my head. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, not from pride, but because they had finally seen me for who I really was. The next morning, before the sunlight had even brightened the curtains, I reached for my phone and scanned my inbox like always. A few meeting notes, some budget updates. Then I saw a name I didn't recognize in the sender field. Hudson Kane. I opened the email and the first line caught my attention right away. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were Harper's brother. I've always looked up to you at the company. I raised an eyebrow, sank back into the pillow, and kept reading. Hudson went on to say he was genuinely surprised to learn about the connection between me and Harper. Then, without sugarcoating it or dodging around the issue, he wrote, I didn't expect her to be like that. I'm going to end the relationship. Thank you for not putting me in a difficult position in front of everyone. I set the phone down on my chest and closed my eyes for a moment. It took a few quiet minutes before I opened the inbox again and began typing my reply, measured, honest, and simple. Hudson, that's your decision to make. I don't expect anyone to act a certain way just to stay in my favor. Whatever you choose, think it through carefully. And just so you know, I keep family and work separate. I hit send, no second thoughts, no emotion left lingering. That was all I needed to say. Once something is clear, I don't need to add more. Around 10 a.m., just as I was finishing a meeting with my department leads and jotting down follow-up notes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked the screen. It was Harper calling. I looked at it for a few seconds, then declined the call. Not because I was angry. Not to send a message. Just because I'd grown tired of apologies that only ever showed up after everything had already fallen apart. 5 minutes later, a text arrived. I'm sorry. I didn't think Hudson would react like that. You're his boss. If you said something, I know he'd listen. Please talk to him. Ask him to come back to me. After reading it, I walked over to the window at the end of the hallway and leaned lightly against the frame. I read the message a few more times before finally typing out a reply. Clear, direct, and just long enough to say what needed to be said. Hudson didn't walk away because of anything I said. He left because of how you behave, how you treat people, how you dismiss what you don't understand, and how you always assume a gentle voice is enough to bend others your way. I pressed send, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and returned to my desk. Not even a full minute passed before another message came through. I know I've made mistakes, but I mean it this time. I'll change. Just give me one more chance. Please believe me. I didn't reply. I read the message, let it sit for a while, and felt nothing shift inside me. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally saw the truth. Sometimes the real gap between people isn't about the apology itself, it's about when it shows up. I quietly deleted the message and turned back to the life I was living now. About a week later, on a Friday afternoon, I came in from the garage and froze as soon as I stepped onto the porch. There they were, my parents, standing at the front door, each holding a small suitcase. They looked worn out, the kind of tired that comes from travel and from holding too many unspoken things. I didn't ask why they had come or what they were doing there. It was clear this wasn't a surprise visit. I unlocked the door and stepped aside, letting them in. No tension, no awkward small talk. Just a quiet decision to let the moment unfold indoors, away from the cold wind that had started to pick up outside. We sat down in the living room. The tea on the table still gave off steam. My father spoke first. His voice was softer than usual, an apology offered with a tone I rarely heard from him. My mother followed, saying they had taken time to reflect, and maybe they'd gone too far. Maybe things shouldn't have unraveled the way they did. I stayed quiet. I didn't interrupt or reassure them. I just listened, trying to understand whether this was a real turning point or simply the lead-in to something else. And as I'd anticipated, my father's tone shifted. We're still family, Eli, and family supports one another. We raised you, gave you an education. Everything you've built, it started with us, right? I looked at him, My expression didn't change, but I sat a little taller in my chair. Then my mother spoke, her voice low and measured, as though what she was saying was perfectly reasonable. "If you could send us maybe $2,000 each month, just some help. For someone like you, it's not a lot." I looked at the two people sitting in my living room, the same people who had once barred me from a birthday because they saw me as a disappointment, and now they were placing a price on their apology. $2,000 a month because I was their son, and to them my success was no longer mine. It was something they believed I owed. After their request, I let out a quiet laugh, not sarcastic, not bitter. Just the kind of laugh that slips out when something doesn't quite add up. I looked at both of them. Their eyes were locked on mine, clearly waiting for a nod, some form of agreement. But I didn't feel angry. I was too far past that to be shaken anymore. I leaned back into the chair, my voice steady and even. "What about Harper? How much will she be pitching in each month?" The room seemed to still for a moment. The air felt thicker. My father glanced sideways at my mother. She answered slowly, her voice dipping just a bit. "Your sister's job, it's still uncertain, and the split with Hudson, it's been hard on her." I gave a small nod. I wasn't surprised. It was the same pattern, old excuses dressed in sympathetic tones. But they weren't explanations. They were distractions. I looked up again, met their eyes directly. "If she's willing to contribute $2,000 a month, then I'll do the same. No more, no less." They didn't reply. Just sat there staring at me, as if trying to determine whether I meant it. I continued, still calm. "Or, if you expect me to cover the full amount, I'll need something in writing. A legal agreement that ensures, once you're both gone, the house is transferred entirely to me." I said nothing more. No emotion, no added pressure. I just sat still, waiting, to see what would happen now that, for the first time, I was the one setting the boundaries for something they'd always assumed was mine to handle without question. The silence that followed was heavy and unbroken. Then, without warning, my father pushed himself up from the couch. He slammed his hand against the wooden table, knocking the teacup over and sending its contents running down the edge. His voice erupted, sharp and furious, bouncing off the walls. "You're setting conditions for your own parents? We raised you for over 20 years, and now you want to treat us like strangers, counting every dollar? What kind of life are you even living, Eli?" His voice filled the room, so loud I wouldn't have been surprised if the neighbors caught every word through the walls. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just stayed seated, hands resting calmly on the armrests of the chair, my eyes steady on him. Not harsh, but no longer soft either. I waited until he finished, then rose slowly to my feet. My voice was quiet, controlled, but clear enough to cut through the noise he'd left hanging in the air. "I think it's time for you both to leave my home." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't fueled by anger. It was the kind of request that comes from someone who's reached the edge of what respect alone can carry. No one responded, and the only sound that followed was the soft scrape of luggage being pulled across the wood floor and the faint click of the door closing behind them, quieter than everything they'd stirred up inside me. It's now been 2 years since that evening, since I last saw them right here in my own living room. I didn't block their numbers, I didn't change my email, I didn't cut them off. I just stopped initiating. I waited to see if I still mattered to them once I was no longer defined by obligation. In all that time, not a single message or call. No questions about how I'm doing, no mention of birthdays or health, no simple, "Are you all right?" I used to hold on to the belief that maybe one day they'd change. But over time, I came to understand something. Not everyone changes, especially those who never believed they were wrong to begin with. I still live here, I still work, my life moves forward. The only thing that's different now is that I've stopped allowing myself to be used like an emotional cash machine, always available, always giving, and always left hurting in the name of family. And if there's one truth this entire experience has made clear, it's this: Family isn't a place where people get to demand your kindness and label it love. True family is where you're seen and valued simply for who you are, not for what you can give, not for how much you earn, and not as the emergency option when everyone else walks away. And before I close this chapter, I want to leave you with a question. Was I wrong for choosing not to go back, for saying no when my parents asked for $2,000 a month, even though they're older now? And yes, they did raise me. There was a time when I believed anything could be repaired within a family, but after years of being treated like an outsider in the very place I once called home, I chose something different. I chose to stop waiting. I chose to break the pattern. Was that heartless? Or maybe it was the first time I learned to respect myself exactly when I needed to most.